you forever, the Spirit of truth. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you. I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. Before long, the world will not see me anymore, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. On that day, you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. The one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Thanks be to God. You have a seat. Last weekend, I wasn't here because I was on a little bit of a reunion with some former Franciscan friars. I was studying to be a Franciscan friar at one time. If you don't know what that is, just go with monk. That's a good generic term. And we had a blast at this reunion, and I wanted to show you a couple pictures from that to kick things off, kind of a then and now thing. This is taken in 1979. You can see the old big gas-guzzling cars there in front of the place. I took that in the winter of, I think, 79 or 80. And then this is now. Hasn't changed much, a little greener and with the springtime, the newness. And I just wanted to show a couple more shots of the building just to give you an idea of the place I lived when I was 18 years old, right? I went from senior week to summer of fun, then boom, they slapped a robe on me. I was suddenly a friar. So that was then, this is now. Another one, that was then. I'm the blonde guy with the guitar, if you can believe that. And look for myself and this other guy with the guitar, the heavyweight guy there. This is now, right? So we were jamming in the chapel, some old tunes that we used to do and have fun with. So another one, that was then. We had a class of 23 young guys who had put the robe on and were suddenly friars. And this is now. Not everybody's pictured here. They're not all gone or deceased or anything, but these are the guys who could make it. So they've aged a little bit, but they still look pretty good, right? But standing in front of the same building. Okay, and another one. That was then. This is the chapel at Christmas time, very beautiful. We had these stalls that faced each other, and we would recite the Psalms back and forth in kind of a monastic style. So that was then, and this is now. A little bit different, but kind of the same. A few things have changed. And again, this is then full of friars, young friars. That was, I think, on one of our, I think that was at the end of the year sometime. And then this is now. The friars have a wonderful ministry there at Sunday Mass at the what's now the Shrine of St. Anthony. It used to be called the novitiate, which was the first year of training for novices, beginner friars, right? So here's another one. This is then. I had to take this shot because this is now. That's right, he changed the slide. It hasn't been updated since 1979. And I took this more for the guys who hadn't been there. And so look at this place. Do you remember this? Okay, so one more, the piece de resistance. That was me back in 1979, if you can believe that, standing next to what was the lectern in the chapel. All the lectern and the tabernacle where the Eucharist was kept were friars holding these big stones to go rebuild the church. That was the command to St. Francis, go rebuild my church, which is falling into ruins. So that was then, and this is now. So same podium, little different look there. But just wanted to share those with you, and you can get rid of it now. Because it was a great reunion. We had a blast. I think I discovered abdominal muscles from belly laughing that I hadn't been in touch with for quite some time. It was a blast, and it always is very nostalgic to get together with old friends. But there's also a trick to nostalgia, and almost kind of a danger to it. Because the danger is to look back and to say sort of, those were the good old days. That was the time. That was the the wonderful time, right? The temptation to hold on to things somewhere back there. For the young person who's been a couple years in the working world, making her way, it might be looking back to college and going, oh, that was so easy. Would that I could go back to college. For young parents, after the honeymoon's over, oh, look at this cute little baby, or we have 2 now, and then they're going, where's the fun, where's the freedom? We don't even remember that anymore. Maybe for middle-agers like myself, it's the glory days of youth, remembering the days of youth. Maybe for people even older than I am, it's just remembering a time when you remembered the days of youth, or remembered what you ate for breakfast, at least. But it's all nostalgia, isn't it? And a certain kind that gets a little tricky. That sense that somehow those were the good old days. And they can't be relived, they can't be gone back to or recaptured and all this sort of thing. We celebrate today the 6th Sunday of Easter. And we start more and more with this gospel reading to start to look forward to 2 weeks from now, to Pentecost. And interestingly, Pentecost begins ordinary time. We keep saying like the 2nd Sunday or the 3rd Sunday in Pentecost, but it's also called ordinary time, as if ordinary time is the season of the Spirit. And even though that movement is kind of ritual or symbolic with the way we move with the lectionary, I think it also reflects a certain tendency in our lives. And that tendency is to get tempted to nostalgia, for pining for things the way they were, or maybe holding on to things just as they are now, and not wanting to move forward into a new season, which is the season of the Spirit, and which is the season of the ordinary. A kind of unhealthy type of nostalgia. And I think this was the mood in the room when Jesus utters these words that we heard in the gospel today. It's the night before Jesus dies. He's going away. He tells them that in no uncertain terms. And they don't like it. They don't want him to go. And understandably so. But even after the resurrection, we see a scene like Mary Magdalene going to grab on to Jesus, to cling to him, and he says, no, Mary, don't hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father, which is kind of a strange phrase, isn't it? But I take it to mean almost, don't hold on to me because you have no idea how close I can be to you if I go. Because there's another presence, another helper that's coming. And how would he be with them if he was going away? Haven't you felt that, those times when you feel so close to Jesus, so spiritually alive, and then almost out of nowhere, he kind of goes dark? You feel empty or confused or just disconnected with yourself. It just isn't the same. And instead of looking for him here, now, in this moment, you somehow start looking for, trying to recapture some past spiritual feeling back there when I was close to him. It's a temptation. But Jesus, the night before he died, had already promised them, if you love me, keep my commands, and I will pray to my Father, and he will send you another paraclete. Sometimes is the translation, right? Not exactly a word we can wrap our hearts around. Yes, that's what we all want, a paraclete, right? It comes from this Greek word parakletos, which means, as the reading said, advocate, lawyer. It's a legal term, and it has to do with the Jewish religious law and defending that and so forth. But John uses it with the law of love. And so it's got all these nuances, not just of advocate, but of helper, encourager, supporter, someone who would be there with you till the end, no matter what, forever. Jesus calls him the Spirit of truth. And when he promises this to his disciples, what's he saying to them? I think he's saying what I kept repeating during these pictures. That was then, and this is now. So you want to cling to me as you know me now. You want to get stuck in relating to me, Jesus says, as you do now. But there's so much more. There's a new season, and you need to move forward into that season of the Spirit. In fact, if I stay with you in this form, I can't even send that Spirit to you. I've kind of wondered about that, though. I've wondered, why couldn't he? Why couldn't he send us the Spirit and be right by our side? Wouldn't that be so cool to be walking through your day and just go, Jesus, help me out here. And he's right there, like he appears in like that Bible movie where he's with Peter, or he's with this one or that one. He's right there, the risen Christ. But I think there's a mystery there. That he's saying, I can't be with you in the most intimate way if I'm beside you. Because when the Spirit comes, I won't be beside you. I'll be within you. I'll be living inside you. In the most radical way that we can mean that. He is living inside us. Jesus said, if the seed doesn't fall into the ground and die, the new life can't spring up. And in the same way, if he doesn't go, he can't send that Spirit. And in the same way, if we don't let go of what was and really engage what is, we'll wither up and die. Right? Jesus' resurrected life can't live in us if we get stuck in some past moment. During the Easter season, it's kind of interesting. We haven't always heard these readings because we don't do each reading each Sunday, but the first reading is always from the Acts of the Apostles. And it's intentional on the part of the lectionary, the part of the church, because it's almost like, let's look back nostalgically at the beginnings after the resurrection, where things were fresh and new and moving and grooving. And it's meant to inspire us. It's meant to move us, excite us, breathe new life into us. But there's also that temptation in that looking back to get stuck there, to think, oh yeah, those New Testament days, weren't they the good old days? And the irony is that that's the exact opposite spirit of the Acts of the Apostles. The Acts of the Apostles are always outward bound. It's always fresh, it's new, it's venturing into places and situations the apostles couldn't even imagine. It's anything but nostalgia. There's no time for that. The church is moving and shaking and moving forward. And that's not always the way it was. Before Jesus' death, and even after it, to some degree, the apostles were a band of men afraid. They were huddled together in that upper room, clinging only to the memory of what was, the memory of the way it had been with Jesus. Have you ever been there? You ever been in a place in your life when you're so holding on to what was, that what was kind of begins to take a hold on you and really keep you stuck? It might be after a painful divorce that left you and your family just so wounded, so fractured. Might be after a heart-wrenching breakup with someone where you don't know if you can open up your heart that vulnerably again. Maybe with the disciples, it's with the death of one you loved so much that you just can't even imagine life without them. And I think also today of our servicemen and women who've fallen, and maybe who you know as family members. I saw one of these pictures, memes or something, where this soldier was kneeling down in front of a young boy, giving him the flag, of his father, and the boy's just kind of bearing up, and the tears are rolling down. And it said, don't let this day, be just about barbecues, right? And that really was moving to me. Memorial Day, we remember this, but it sears the soul, doesn't it? This sense of loss. And that was where the apostles were, right? That's where they were. And if you feel that way today, in some way or another, and even in this Easter season of joy, you're in good company. You're not alone. Even they felt that way. But it's not the end of the story. Because once the Holy Spirit comes, it infuses into them and into us a new life that enables us to be bold, to let go, to be free, to live lightly, to move forward. It enables us to do and to dream what we could never have imagined. It enables us to be present to the present, to the freshness, the newness of this moment and where that's taking us, where the Spirit is taking us. And brothers and sisters, that is the only place where the Spirit of the risen Christ really lives. Not in some good old day, back then. It's now, and it's moving forward into a future that the Spirit is calling us to. I remember with these pictures, we posted them on Facebook, and a bunch of guys saw them and commenting, laughing, etc. And one guy said, "Wow, those were the glory days, weren't they?" And I know this guy, so my response wasn't preachy to him. He got it right away. I said, indeed they were, but these are the glory days. And I got a hearty amen from him. And that's true. But it's true only because of the coming of the Holy Spirit. Otherwise, we're stuck. Even with Jesus' resurrection, when he goes away and that's it, we kind of have this memory. No. The Spirit of truth is with us. And he's the Spirit of truth, not of illusion, some allurement of some idyllic time. He's the Spirit of the real, not of fantasy. The Spirit of God is not the spirit of that, but of this. Not of then, but of now. The Spirit of the present who makes Jesus present. I will not leave you orphans, he says, but I will come to you. And I will come to you through the Spirit who's with you and who's in you. It was hard to let go, even for Jesus the night before he died. To let go of thinking this is it. And as humans, he must have felt that. The disciples felt that when he was going. Honestly, it was difficult to leave the life with those brothers and to transition, to move forward into where I knew the Spirit was leading me, knew life was moving, knew I needed to be. But those changes, those transitions for all of us are difficult. What's that look like for you this morning? What are those changes? In what ways are you still maybe clinging to the past or the past clinging to you? Maybe you're holding on to an idea about yourself that's just time to move on from. Maybe you're holding on to a vision of what your family should look like or should have become, and it's time to move on from that. Maybe just a season of life that's now past. Spiritually, are you holding on to an old Jesus, a Jesus of old that used to be in your life, where the Spirit is guiding you and calling you into a new season, where you have a deeper, more mature relationship with him? In what way do you hear that Easter angel looking at you and whispering, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" Jesus is risen. He's not there. He's alive. He's here. He's now. That was then. This is now. How about beyond personally? How about as a church community? We just celebrated a year of life as a church and had the slideshow and the chicken picnic and all that good stuff. And it was lots of fun, lots of energy. And we remember good times. We remember perhaps for some of you difficult times when in and through each other, that parakletos, that spirit, that helper, that encourager, that strengthener was right there in the people in this room. Wonderful, wonderful season. But the danger for us is that we get too comfortable. We too can get too cozy. We can start to coddle this good thing that the Spirit has given us, and that with the Spirit we have worked hard to build. We can say, oh, let's keep it small just like it is. Let's keep the music just like it is. Let's stay in this building forever, whatever it might be. Let's not change, because isn't this good? But the Spirit of God is the Spirit of change. It's the Spirit of life. And life changes. Life moves. It evolves. It won't be held bound by barriers or obstacles. Its very impetus is to break out of that. And so too with the Spirit of the living God, the risen Christ. So whatever shape it might take, we have to be open to growth, open to change, open to expansion, to reforming the shape of things, to meet needs and situations we can't possibly even imagine. But the Spirit does. And the Spirit knows. The Spirit of this season, this moment, this day. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So finally, how do we develop that kind of openness to the Spirit? It's another sermon, so I won't get into it. But really, Jesus says it right up front. He says, love me, keep my commands. Now, in John's gospel, that's not a different thing. It's not like if you keep my commands and be good and behave yourself, that proves you love me. So it's none of that. Neither is it, if you love me, then you will keep my commands. It's one and the same thing. You love me, you keep my commands. In fact, some translations have, if you love me and keep my commands, then I will ask my Father to send the Spirit. Right? It's just one movement. If we love him, we will keep his commands. But it means paying attention and working well to cultivate a heart of love that's going to be open to what the Spirit wants to do. But this work is a sort of non-work. It's a sort of getting myself out of the way so the Spirit can do the work, do his thing. It's kind of like a farmer who tills the soil, plants the seed, waters, and waits upon the rain and the sun. That's what we're called to do. We're called to pray at the end of the day. But pray in a certain kind of way, because that Spirit, that power, that presence of God, it's already within us. As Renee said a couple of weeks ago, it's closer to us than our own breath. In fact, that word Spirit in John, as I said some weeks back, means breath. It means life breath. So in a way, what do we have to do to cultivate that heart of love? Just breathe. Right? I don't mean just, mindlessly, but pray in a sense of just breathe, calm down, get out of the way. Less thoughts, less words, less yapping to God, and just a simple, quiet attention to what already is. Right here, right now. And when we learn to do that, little by little, the rest kind of takes care of itself. Because we're calming down all the noise and chatter that who creates? I created. God doesn't. I'm the one with the obstacles. If I just let those things settle down in prayer, what emerges is a loving, open heart. Because it's he who is with us, the Spirit of truth, the helper, the encourager. And he's with us forever. Let's sing one more song of worship to the Lord and try to open our hearts this morning to him a little bit. And